Joe is here for my brother Rani. And the baby shall be kakra for the history of the planet, how the planet Earth was created. So before I began how a planet was created, first of all, planet no for sun no by. And they show the history of the sun, how the sun was formed, or how the sun was created. And you why have sun or by into existence, then we go into how the planet Earth was created. And the rest of the book could be our friend with the Urantia Book, paper 57. If a Urantia Book now, you have paper 57. Maybe audio no, maybe audio na. Umuana macheche mukakra. Na you understand the kakra for the whole history no. Damasi. Nti no, my starting na. Yambo ya audio na. Yenhwe history kakra.
Paper 57. The Origin of Urantia. In presenting excerpts from the archives of Jerusalem for the records of Urantia respecting its antecedents and early history, we are directed to reckon time in terms of current usage, the present leap year calendar of 365¼ days to the year. As a rule, no attempt will be made to give exact years, though they are of record. We will use the nearest whole numbers as the better method of presenting these historic facts. When referring to an event as of 1 or 2 millions of years ago, we intend to date such an occurrence back that number of years from the early decades of the 20th century of the Christian era. We will thus depict these far distant events as occurring in even periods of thousands, millions, and billions of years. 1. The Andronova Nebula. Urantia is of origin in your Sun, and your Sun is one of the multifarious offspring of the Andronova Nebula, which was one time organized as a component part of the physical power and material matter of the local universe of Nebadon. And this great nebula itself took origin in the universal force charge of space in the super-universe of Urantia long, long ago. At the time of the beginning of this recital, the primary master force organizers of Paradise had long been in full control of the space energies which were later organized as the Andronova Nebula. 987 billion years ago, Associate Force Organizer and then Acting Inspector number 811,307 of the Urantia series, traveling out from Uversa, reported to the Ancients of Days that space conditions were favorable for the initiation of materialization phenomena in a certain sector of the then easterly segment of Urantia. 900
Joe, it's here for what can Urantia? Urantia is the name of this planet, the planet Earth. According to universal records, no. The planet, it what the first planet we know, is Urantia. Now, as it is, no. Reciter we know like paper 57, no. Well, some kind of spirits be our friend. The life carriers, they are in charge of life. Whether the formation of plants, like the creation of plants, animals, and humans. We are in charge of that aspect of life now. And our life career be a what's not associated for a long time. So, all my knowledge, a life career. Now, it's not called life career. What can the spirits be a life career? Where you man then. If I know free, one man or father or bind to us, and I can in our house. And to us, you know, say, obey you to yen the part, yet time we know what they're church. In Yamana, but I will come as Urantia, no, our planets, we know. planet no mame. The planet ne mame no. Aye wia no. The planet Earth ofi ewia na yehunu. Planet Earth fi ewia no no ade. Obai. The planet Earth any magical we be no or just appeared. No. Yes, we be a science. Libya is science. Until you tell what say, we are sending your authorities. Oh, we are sending now. Ovonton, the name Ovonton. Ovonton is the name of the super universe. The super universe now a planet account we find Ovonton according to the Urantia Book. And so what say, I'm ready by that was 987 billion years ago. 987 billion years ago. The Associate Force Organizer and the Acting Inspector number 811307 of the Ovonton series, traveling out from Uvesa, reported to the Ancient of Days that the space conditions were favorable for the initiation of materialization phenomena in a certain sector of the then easterly segment of Ovonton. And say, I watch any there. And maybe by we are in the universe no conform so no be our watch space. Space and maybe soon as a sun be part of formula will take a records. What's it 987 years ago? No? 87 billion years ago. No? The Associate Force Organizer, no? Or reporting my Ancient of Days. No? Ancient of Days is the head of the super universe. The Ancient of Days is the head of the super universe, the governor of the super universe. No? The space conditions were favorable for the initiation of materialization phenomena. And to check the space condition at the easterly segment of Ovonton, the eastern side of Ovonton, space condition be right. Wait to my form we are so we are start with we are no. And to know Yakomo was say we are not your planet in the film by now. We are not free. The Androneva Nebula. We are not nebula. We are not mommy. Nane papa. A nebula. It's a walk a nebula. Then a nebula. Nebula, a cloud of gases and dust. And to watch your picture here that we are. This is how a nebula looks like. It's a nebula no gases and dust in space. And out of nebula no, the stars are formed. The stars are this are when na stars na we star bia ewia. Na ewia na star no nyina no. Na ewia no so ye star. Distance into na yehu ketekete no ntino ewia nyina na star bia yehu nyina no, they originated from a nebula, and a nebula is a cloud of gases and dust. Nti nebula ne bi na be de church no na nebula city by gases and dust in space. Ntino ewia bia fi nebula mu na oba ewia of nebula na oba na kwanya nebula the form ewia no, like gases no is more about like gases or nebula no more hydrogen and helium. Gases no hydrogen and helium. About more than 70%, mostly more than 70% no is hydrogen. Now, with time, the gravitational forces now, or what nebula no, they bring all the materials together, the dust and the gases. They bring them, they keep bringing them together, and it takes millions of years for that to happen. Taking millions of years. Now nebula no, the gravity now what nebula no, it will bring the gases and the dust together, and with time, the mass of the dust, the dust and the gases, is going to increase because they come together and the mass becomes heavier. Into with time, gravity, will collapse. And when gravity collapses now, the atoms, they collide. And when the atoms collide, there's nuclear fission. And when there's nuclear fission, stars are born. If we are stars, what we want, like nuclear fission is here. Out of the gravitational collapse now, then the stars will be born. It's a video how the stars are formed. And says no, if we are no, if we are no, time na boy we are no by no. Out of the nebula no, planet in Yambai, the planet Earth on Yambai Kra. Tiba could do time a planet no swelling. By its moment shadow.
Archives testify that was recorded they were in reality from the mother gravity grasp and tore out certain outside influences which were to be shortly encountered. Thus the gaseous content commenced to weaken, and there ensued the stage of gas escapement, the gas streaming forth as two gigantic and distinct arms which took origin on opposite sides of the mother mass. The rapid revolutions of this enormous central core soon imparted a spiral appearance to these two projecting gas streams. The core more closely approached the sun. The secondary career of a space nebula was a comparatively isolated blazing orb which were to inaugurate the second nebula sun cycle were imminent. The quartan cycle of nebula existence was about to begin. 8 billion years ago, the terrific terminal eruption began. Only the outer systems are safe at the time of such a cosmic upheaval, and this was the beginning of the end of the nebula. This final sun disgorgement extended over a period of almost 2 billion years. 7 billion years ago witnessed the height of the Andronova terminal breakup. This was the period of the birth of the larger terminal suns and the apex of the local physical disturbances. 6 billion years ago marks the end of the terminal breakup and the birth of your sun, the 56th from the last of the Andronova second solar family. This final eruption of the nebula nucleus gave birth to 136,702 suns, most of them solitary orbs. The total number of suns and sun systems having origin in the Andronova Nebula was 1,013,628. The number of the solar system sun is 1,013,572. And now the great Andronova.
And to know what 7 billion years ago, na Andronova nebula no. Okay, 6 billion years ago. Let me summarize BB very simple. 6 billion years ago marks the end of the terminal breakup and the birth of your sun. See, you will focus on your sun because in part I'm going to the history of the other suns. So I want to focus on our sun. It is 6 billion years ago, no. Na yang ye we are na your one. Wono, our nebula, Andronova nebula. what's it? That final eruption of the nebula. When ya if you are baku 136,702 out of that final eruption of the nebula. If you are P out of the nebula, no, you are P no film. But they focus on Yakasa with the sun and then go into that.
Nebula is no more, but it lives on in the many suns and their planetary families which originated in this mother cloud of space. The final nuclear remnant of this magnificent nebula still burns with a reddish glow and continues to give forth moderate light and heat to its remnant planetary family of 165 worlds, which now revolve about this venerable mother of two mighty generations of the monarchs of light. 5. Origin of Monmatia, the Urantia solar system. 5 billion years ago, your sun was a comparatively isolated blazing orb, having gathered to itself most of the nearby circulating matter of space, remnants of the recent upheaval which attended its own birth. Today, your...
So what was 5 billion years ago, no? Yeah, we are no. Origin the free nebula no. Now, organa materials will just remember, like as I said, no. We had a lot of, like, the nebula had a lot of materials, a lot of dust. You know, if we only gather most of those materials, no. That was 5 billion years ago.
The sun has achieved relative stability, but its 11.5 year sunspot cycles betray that it was a variable star in its youth. In the early days of your sun, the continued contraction and consequent gradual increase of temperature initiated tremendous convulsions on its surface. These titanic heaves required 3.5 days to complete a cycle of varying brightness. This variable state, this periodic pulsation, rendered your sun highly responsive to certain outside influences which were to be shortly encountered. Thus was the stage of local space set for the unique origin of Monmatia, that being the name of your sun's planetary family, the solar system to which your world belongs. Less than 1% of the planetary systems of Orvanton have had a similar origin. 4,500,000,000 years ago, the enormous Angona system began its approach to the neighborhood of this solitary sun. The center of this great system was a dark giant of space, solid, highly charged, and possessing tremendous gravity pull. As pulsations, streams of gaseous material were shot out into space as gigantic solar tongues. At first, these flaming gas tongues would invariably fall back into the sun, but as Angona drew nearer and nearer, the gravity pull of the gigantic visitor became so great that these tongues of gas would break off at certain points, the roots falling back into the sun, while the outer sections would become detached to form independent bodies of matter, solar meteorites, which immediately started to revolve about the sun in elliptical orbits of their own. As the Angona system drew nearer, the solar extrusions grew larger and larger. More and more matter was drawn from the sun to become independent circulating bodies in surrounding space. This situation developed for about 500,000 years, until Angona made its closest approach to the sun. Whereupon the sun, in conjunction with one of its periodic internal convulsions, experienced a partial disruption. From opposite sides and simultaneously, enormous volumes of matter were disgorged. From the Angona side, there was drawn out a vast column of solar gases, rather pointed at both ends and markedly bulging at the center, which became permanently detached from the immediate gravity control of the sun. This great column of solar gases, which was thus separated from the sun, subsequently evolved into the 12 planets of the solar system. The repercussional ejection of gas from the opposite side of the Sun in tidal sympathy with the extrusion of this gigantic solar system ancestor has since condensed into the meteors and space dust of the solar system, although much, very much of this matter was subsequently recaptured by solar gravity as the Angona system receded into remote space. Although Angona succeeded in drawing away the ancestral material of the solar system planets and the enormous volume of matter now circulating about the Sun as asteroids and meteors, it did not secure for itself any of this solar matter. The visiting system did not come quite close enough to actually steal any of the Sun's substance, but it did swing sufficiently close to draw off into the intervening space all of the material comprising the present-day solar system. The 5 inner and 5 outer planets soon formed in miniature from the cooling and condensing nucleuses in the less massive and tapering ends of the gigantic gravity bulge which Angona had succeeded in detaching from the Sun, while Saturn and Jupiter were formed from the more massive and bulging central portions. The powerful gravity pull of Jupiter and Saturn early captured most of the material stolen from Angona as the retrograde motion of certain of their satellites bears.
Okay, into no my watching and the says here you know Eviano was space. Will cool it down kakra or burning hydrogen, more hydrogen, or burning hydrogen gases. No? But with time, a certain solar system, if you have I also want a solar system, no, like just like your solar system, yeah, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Earth, and the rest, no. The we are no obeying yen we are no. The time no obeying yen we are no. The gravitational force of them we are with friend Angona, the Angona system. Because of gravity, no. Angona no pull some substances, some gases, burning gases out of our sun. Because of the gravity, no. The more I'll burn your planet, your sun, or pull gravity, no pull some of the sun materials, no, into the vicinity of our sun or around the sun, into those substances now pull. But what's Angona no one burn planet be your sun to the extent today and come to my then, will be via those materials now, which you feel your sun, no. The sun, no, your sun, no. I'm going to treat materials in the face and now the materials and the gases now burning gases almost started almost somewhere then they are revolving around the sun until those materials now the free the sun more better than the planets Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, like Earth. To those materials now the Angona system no. If the gravity no pull it out of your sun. And even the planets in our solar system. And the planets no put in a lot of asteroids, meteorites. Free sun all the asteroids and meteorites in our solar system. The solar system, the Angona system no or pulling those materials out of our sun. As we were saying, like I'm gonna burn your sun to one burn to via any of those materials. Now, if the material is a planet be today, Jupiter and Saturn, they are so huge. According to the Urantia Book, the reason why Jupiter and Saturn was so pioneer. Materials now fit sun the inner portion, the nucleus of the sun. Now those two planets now. When you have material free, bulk materials free, the center of the sun. And so, during the earlier days, like the Jupiter and Saturn, they were more like suns themselves. They were more like suns, and because of the size, Up to today, no, they are still burning. When you want completely your planetary age, still on Jupiter and Saturn, they are still gases. The surface of Jupiter and Saturn is not like Mars and Earth. It's Earth, surface now is solid. Your liquid, so or like at least no. But still, no, Saturn and Jupiter, no, they are still gaseous. Still, our gases are still an when forming way because what's from. It will take millions, billions of years more. It will take more billions of years before the surface will cool down and remember now about how the Angona system obey destructed sun, no pulling materials out of our sun, and we got the planets. That's how we had our planets. Yes. Into the end shadow.
Witness. Jupiter and Saturn, being derived from the very center of the enormous column of superheated solar gases, contained so much highly heated sun material that they shone with a brilliant light and emitted enormous volumes of heat. They were, in reality, secondary suns for a short period after their formation as separate space bodies. These two largest of the solar system planets have remained largely gaseous to this day, not even yet having cooled off to the point of complete condensation or solidification. The gas contraction nucleuses of the other 10 planets soon reached the stage of solidification, and so began to draw to themselves increasing quantities of the meteoric matter circulating in nearby space. The worlds of the solar system thus had a double origin. Nucleuses of gas condensation, later on augmented by the capture of enormous quantities of meteors. Indeed, they still continue to capture meteors, but in greatly lessened numbers. The planets do not swing around the sun in the equatorial plane of their solar mother, which they would do if they had been.
And after Angona system, why extract the materials out of the sun are in your planets? Those planets, they are still burning gases. Still more burning, but because of the size, almost sizes, almost gravity, so to me, pull with their gravity, almost pulling a lot of the meteorites now or space no planets need pulling more. I watch how a meteors no during the earlier days what hit the planet no. So the planets need pulling. So most of the materials on the planet Earth no and other planets no, they were meteorites in space. So what attracted materials or be go as we do now form the Earth no. Meteorites are in our space, and the Earth is using gravity or the pull those meteorites. And now the size or increasing to time, the size is increasing, Earth the size is increasing because of pulling more meteorites. So those times na Earth planet Earth you were doing there in real world or near or doing so those times there was nothing like that. And near was only burning gas. Burning gas is like gas are all burning, just like that. Like it was more like the sun. First Earth, not to the sun, and all pulling more meteorites. So the size became bigger because of the meteorites. Now with gravity, no ultimately or pulling by to mention.
Being thrown off by solar revolution, rather they travel in the plane of the Angona solar extrusion, which existed at a considerable angle to the plane of the sun's equator. While Angona was unable to capture any of the solar mass, your sun did add to its metamorphosing planetary family some of the circulating space material of the visiting system. Due to the intense gravity field of Angona, its tributary planetary family pursued orbits of considerable distance from the dark giant. And shortly after the extrusion of the solar system ancestral mass, and while Angona was yet in the vicinity of the sun, 3 of the major planets of the Angona system swung so near to the massive solar system ancestor that its gravitational pull, augmented by that of the Sun, was sufficient to overbalance the gravity grasp of Angona and to...
Yo, it's here for me, because we know all one to know. Obi a pedo nya time now can be an uncle the Urantia Book no. Echo urantia.org. urantia.org. Echo urantia.org. I be Urantia Book no online. Wait me my kind anytime I be kind so I bet me audio so na to know. When they bring a date is no more. Yo, it's here for me that I had the history of the planet Earth no yet beba. Into this I how is planet in the forming. Planet no kwanya planet no obai no. First of all no planet ni fi ewia no na ewia so fi nebula no. Into no the process na planet ni fi nebula mo be no. Planet ni fi sun no na sun so fi nebula mo no. Anya dey we see once. Even currently still other planets are forming. There's planets and still for nebula POH still they are forming suns, and the suns are also forming planets. And new planets are being formed. The creation is an ongoing process. The creation on year still and we have to know every day be our planet for what we have for front life creation that still are in history the planet history creation of the earth the next topic I ever can way. You best know about the life careers, because you best know some history about the life careers. They can life careers. Who are the life careers? Why don't know from life careers? Because the reason why they have life careers and the life careers, I'm creating the plants and animals, we create plants and animals, and also the primitive humans. Make a primitive humans, and Adam and Eve are some American. We were primitive humans, as an Adam and Eve here, the Oba. Before Adam and Eve, the banana coffee we have from the primitive humans. You can be in history. Quite primitive humans, some by a history. Now, quite Adam and Eve, some mobile, so what do you want to you can it's for my brother Randy, made the massive brain, them with him, and I best not to do.